The Yosemite Leadership Program gives students from the University of California, Merced an opportunity to work and build leadership skills here in Yosemite National Park. When our internship began, we made a series of expeditions around the park. For example, we hiked to Old Inspiration Point. That day helped us develop an emotional connection with the wilderness. Not only that, that week brought the group closer to educating one another, facing challenges, and dominating in snowball fights.
Feel what it's like to be new, 'cause in my head.
In the second week, we each moved to our respective branches. I worked in the education branch. The purpose of the education branch is to provide youth with programs not only inside the park, but outside the park as well. Before I began to participate in programs, I had to study the materials first. Then, my journey began. At the National Parks Family Day, an event that took place in Fresno, June 18, 2011. This event is mainly to reach out to and connect Latino families to national parks. Along with Ranger Daniel Martinez, I represented the education branch of Yosemite National Park. During that day, I had the pleasure to connect the audience to Yosemite by speaking in Spanish. This was very important to me because when my family first visited Yosemite, we didn't know anything about it, especially my parents, who only speak Spanish. After I finished presenting, I saw that parents felt welcome and gathered around our workstation. We talked to them about wildlife here in Yosemite. Our display used props like pelts, skulls, and photos. They were very excited and asked us many questions. That day, I realized how valuable it is to be a second language speaker. Ranger Daniel Martinez and I also had the pleasure to work with the Youth Conservation Corps.
The YCC program is about educating young adults to enter into the workforce, to teach them safety, overall work ethic, and living together and experiencing life together.
Summer was actually the first time in the history of the YCC that there was an educational component added to it, which I think was important because the YCC members and I got to talk a lot about the history of Yosemite and the importance of conservation and preservation of wild places.
My favorite program was the very first one. Basically it's the second day we were here. We just had an interactive program where we learned about really learned a lot about the history of Yosemite National Park and all the work that went into preserving it and all the money and like just everything that Yosemite stands for, the big trees and the waterfalls. I thought that was awesome.
Thank you, Education Branch.
Thank you, Education Branch.
It was wonderful. We learned a lot. I love it.
Oh. Sunset spans on the skyline.
Lastly, I took part in a very special day here in the park. It took place in the Mariposa Grove of giant sequoias. The Make-A-Wish Foundation granted a wish to a child named Charlie and his family. Ranger Chris Rains and I helped Charlie and his family have a great experience here in the park. They were really amazed, and they loved the big trees.
It's the summer of life, it's the summer of love. If it teaches you grace, it's just a push from above. Push from above. It's the summer of life, it's the summer of lust.
Dear Education Branch, I want to thank you for making me realize how valuable I am. You taught me about integrity. And most important, I want to thank you because through you, I had the opportunity to meet Charlie and his family. Dear YOP, you were always there for me. I learned how to be a leader, You taught me how to protect nature, and most important, I learned that I can change the world.
With the full moon rising, reflecting
Dear Yosemite, I want to thank you for sharing with me your beauty, air, and stars. I had a great time here, climbing your mountains, smelling your trees, and especially observing your wildlife. You opened your arms to me. I made friends that I will never forget. You gave me what I was looking for, freedom. I feel ready to go back home, teach others about what I learned, and I promise to come back and say hello to this great community. Thank you.
pulls you in close, it holds you through to August, through to